Retail has its many challenges, and despite its potential from expanding to 23 countries, being stocked in retailers globally, backing from Dragon's Den, Jasmine Wicks, the founder of Faace, a skincare brand that focuses on hormonal changes, decided to sell the business in 2024. Today, Jasmine and I will talk about the journey of the brand, what circumstances led her to selling, and how she found a buyer. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining me for this very long overdue conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about the journey of Faace and why you started the brand.
I've been in beauty for almost 20 years, helping other brands sort of launch into different markets, develop strategies. And through doing that, I had this amazing network around me and still do of beauty experts. So, like skin experts, journalists, aromatherapists. And my husband, Dan, actually is a brilliant designer. And we were just, I guess, like putting all of that good work into other businesses. So, one day we just thought it'd be super cool to try and create something for ourselves. Very naively, I've got to admit, we felt like because we had like creatively everything that we needed, and we had my other business, which is like a sort of PR and social marketing agency, that we'd be covered. And so anyway, we came up with the concept of Faace and launched it to market without any kind of like business centered strategy.
Well, I mean, I have to say, your packaging was. I mean, I know you were talking about business center strategy. The packaging is fantastic. There was a gap in the market for it as a brand in terms of the skincare and the benefits of what it does. So I think you're doing yourself a disservice by saying that you didn't have the business center strategy there, because it looked absolutely stunning. And it was successful from
Yeah,
quite early on as well.
yeah, so just to be clear, it was a very well researched strategic brand. So like yes, absolutely, from aesthetically, from a messaging perspective to an end benefit perspective, it was very, very like thoroughly well thought out. It took us 2 years to develop that concept. So when I say that, I mean more in the traditional sense of like, what's my 5 year forecast look like? How am I actually going to raise the funds to then make a success of this business? So I think like definitely we put the time and effort into creating an awesome brand that we hoped would stand out in the market, which I think is no mean feat, and definitely something that I'm super proud of. We just maybe didn't have the business acumen to then actually know how to navigate that into in a world where there's so many other brands to fight up against, if that makes sense.
And when did you launch the brand?
Yes, we launched the brand in 2020, which also, as you can imagine, had its challenges. So, like I say, for 2 years we were developing it, launched it, and then literally 1 month later, COVID hit. So that was quite a easy experience as well, because what we thought we were going to do with the business ended up making COVID ended up making it that we actually did a lot of other things instead. So, like for example, we were approached by Holland and Barrett, and we were looking at doing a nationwide rollout with them, and then obviously stores shut, so that didn't materialise. But then what we did do is launch with Cult Beauty. So actually, in some ways, for us, it was quite fortuitous, because it meant that actually we were launching what I felt was a more relevant retailer at that time, and actually my dream retailer, to be honest, rather than maybe going down a route being led by what the opportunities were that were on the table as opposed to where we wanted to see the brand.
You were stocked in many retailers. Do you think it expanded too quickly? Talk me about the kind of things that you feel now looking back on it that you wouldn't have done or you would have done differently.
I'm glad you've asked me this, because I'm really passionate about sharing my learnings, because I just feel like if you have this sort of knowledge, it can really help you be more strategic and ultimately get better results. But I think, yeah, it was almost a blessing and a curse, the amount of interest that we had. So straight away, we organically had so much interest from lots of retailers internationally, press, consumers. And whilst that sounds amazing, and with my sort of PR hat on, I know how hard that is to
Yeah.
kind of create. We ended up just saying yes to everything. And despite some like subtle warnings from people in the know, I just thought, well, of course we need to say yes to this. If we want to go into Liberty but Neiman Marcus in New York at the same time, then why would we not? But actually, in hindsight, what we should have done potentially, and we'll never know, is, looked at maybe one market, really leaned into that market, potentially just stuck with maybe Liberty as our like bricks and mortar, perhaps Cult Beauty as our digital offering, and really leaned into those partnerships. Because I think what I didn't realize is, yes, I knew how hard it was to get into those listings, but what I didn't realize was how hard it was to actually then drive that footfall and make those listings work really, really well for you as an independent brand.
And where was the product being manufactured?
So it was manufactured in the UK. We work with a lab that specialises in ethical and sustainable beauty. The actual partnership there actually is a reason, or not a big reason, as why like I feel like the brand didn't work so well as well. I mean, so I think it's really, really important that you find a manufacturer that you can build rapport with. And one of the challenges that I found was that my manufacturer refused to work with me on like a personal level. So we couldn't do telephone calls, we couldn't do in-person meetings, and everything had to be done on email. And again, like a big watch out for me, if I could have my time again, would be to find a manufacturing partner that really does feel just like a partnership. Like any good
Yeah.
relationship, we know my other agency, if we don't feel like an extension of that person's team, it's never going to work, and they're not going to get the best results out of that. And with manufacturing, it's exactly the same. But again, I'd never done it before. So when they were telling me that actually this was the normal way of working, I just kind of accepted it. But I think over the years, I could have really benefited from a more personal relationship, more open discussion. And actually, some of the reasons why I decided to exit the business were really down to that, because, after 5 years of struggling to get what we needed pushed through, but without having that direct contact, it really took a toll on me. So I guess just going back to the original question, it is just, first of all, spreading ourselves too thinly. Definitely, I would have leaned into less partnerships, but in a bigger way. Like even just having the budget to invest in internal marketing. I didn't realize, how much money you actually needed to make a success of Cult Beauty. Not only did you need a pipeline of new launches, but you also needed to be able to afford to do sampling or gifts with purchases or promotions, or pay for their internal marketing, like being on their newsletter. And that takes a lot of cash. And I think if I'd have known that, I would have put a plan in place for that, and could have definitely made that partnership more successful. And then again, like I say, another big learning is not having those relationships in place where you really do feel like the rapport's there, and they can really coach you and nurture you through long term that situation that you're in.
Yeah, with the supplier. And I think you're right, a lot of people will sign up with businesses, and depending on the retailer, they think, okay, I'm in, that's done. I've now, I'm now on the shelf, people will find me. Whereas they don't realize that if that retailer is doing, and this isn't the same for every retailer, if they're doing a promotion, you need to contribute to that markdown spend that's going to be part of that promotion. Or like you mentioned with Cult Beauty, if you want to be on that top of that email banner, they're one of their digital assets that you have to then that you have to pay for. So how many retailers were you in at that height of expansion, I suppose, in wholesale?
At one point, I think it was around 70 retailers across, I don't even know how many
Wow.
different markets. It was loads. So I'm really
My
super,
God.
super proud of that. Don't get me wrong. The fact that I had some of, if not almost all of the most prestigious retailers across the globe interest in Faace, of course, that's unbelievable. And I think as I'm now going through my sort of grief process of exiting, because it is like grief, there's been so many emotions I've
Yeah.
experienced over the last year. I'm kind of coming out the other side of it now, feeling like actually I can look back on some of those milestones as real successes. Although I didn't take the brand personally to where I wanted to, that is no mean feat. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely given me an amazing insight into that whole world.
I mean, that, like you say, to have done that from a launch in 2020 to be in 70 retailers is a fantastic achievement. But the stress on your cash flow must have been immense.
Yeah, and it sounds, even saying it out loud to you now, it does feel crazy, but I didn't even have so I've never been to business school. To give you a bit of background on me, I did English and media at uni, worked in the biggest PR companies in London, amazing agencies. My dad was dying, and I had an opportunity to take voluntary redundancy, which I only took because he was dying. Accidentally
Yeah.
set up my first business because my husband's a designer, so he created Known as a brand, and my sister's a lawyer, so she set me up legally. And then I just had this company, ended up getting 3 clients through my network, fell pregnant, was like, shit, I'm sorry for swearing, I'm pregnant, I'm going to need to bring on a team, I'm going to need to bring in infrastructure. So what I'm getting at is I'm not a skilled business mind. That is not, I've spent 20 years being an excellent communicator, but I've not ever had any training in how to fill in a spreadsheet. I've just self-taught. So when I
Yeah.
set up Known, all the processes of setting up an agency, I've just made it up as I've gone along. And now Known's now in its 8 years, been profitable for 8 years. So it's not like I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. But what I'm getting at is I don't have those. No one ever taught me those fundamental skills. So when I then tried to apply my Known learnings to Faace, I'd only had Known for a year when we started working on Faace. So I
Okay.
didn't really have much knowledge in terms of actually how to run a business. So I didn't even, like you said, cash flow. I didn't even really think about the concept of cash flow when I created created
Funding
Faace.
it.
I
Yeah.
just thought, okay, I need some money for product. It's that, you know, it's this many tens of thousands. And I begged, borrowed and stealed from family members and, you know, like raised those funds from my own personal, network. And then I thought, well, you know, I don't have to pay an agency X amount of thousands to do PR. I don't have to pay an agency X amount to do social media management, influencer outreach, etc. So, like, surely if I do all of those things, we should sell some product, we get some money back in the business, and we go again. Even like the words cash flow weren't in my vocabulary at that point.
Yeah.
So, like, it's, yeah, you know, this is the thing. It's like you only know what you know when you know it.
Yeah. And I suppose though it would be unusual for somebody, for a brand the age that your brand was, to have had that success so quickly. So to have had that much strain in such an early time of their growth.
Yeah, I think it is unusual unless you obviously are early on, like potentially VC or whoever backed, so significantly backed. Then you might orchestrate that to happen, like blow up through cash. But I think it is probably quite unusual that it would happen organically.
Or or your back. Yeah, for
Or indie, you know.
a founder led business, and still to be a founder like this. Yeah, for an indie business, like you say, and that's not VC backed, that doesn't have this or a big funding behind them, other than like personal funding, like you said, it would be unusual to have had such organic growth so quickly. So you're going through the journey, and when did you start to realize, or at what point were you like, oh shit, I need some support with this, or I need some funding, or was it straight away, or like?
It was quite soon after we launched and we'd sort of said yes to all these opportunities that I realised that actually I needed some funding, but again, didn't have the know-how to then build a longer term financial strategy, which again, I would say to anyone, build your 5-year plan early on, even if it feels like pie in the sky. You do need to know that, because the minute you start fundraising and you're giving away or selling equity of your business, you know, that's going to impact you in 5 years time if this does work. And obviously you're doing it because you hope and think that it will work. So I thought, okay, I need some money. So the Red Tree did a competition with a company called SFC, the Beauty Accelerator. It was their first year, and so I entered and I won alongside Faace. And we got a 100k investment for 20% of the business. But again, because I was then almost trying to then use that money to then fund all the things I said yes to, rather than, I guess, like using that money just to support one listing or one opportunity or one market. So
Yeah.
I think, again, one of the mistakes that I would have, like, I don't like to call them mistakes, because
Learnings.
mistakes make it sound like I really did something wrong, whereas I feel like I can't have done something wrong if I didn't know. And like, who, you know, if you didn't know, why would you not say yes to all these things? Of course you would. Like, it feels silly at that time. So anyway, yeah, it was almost like it then didn't go maybe as far as it should have or could have. So then I did angel investment, and I think the challenge as well is because the brand is really cool, none of these things were that difficult. Like, I entered the competition, I won. I was like, oh, okay, great, amazing. And then I went on the Angel Investor Network and found an amazing angel who I adore to invest. But it wasn't like, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that that was all a massive struggle. I was quite lucky. I didn't have to speak to hundreds of people to get a yes. I spoke to a few people and I got yeses over the first few years. So again, but the trouble as well with that is there was no one that was saying yes to me that also had the experience to say, do you know what? You need to re-strategize your approach if this is going to last long term. They were like, yes, we'll give you cash because we see the potential, but they weren't like, actually, you need to relook at this.
You with the money, but not giving you then the support from the strategy point of view.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people would always ask me, what kind of investor are you looking for? And I didn't really understand what they meant, because I was like, well, I just need cash, and then I'll do with that cash what I think I want to do with it. But actually, again, another learning for me is, maybe when you're raising investment, actually do think about the type of investor you need, because there are many investors yes, you want cash, but actually if you are early on, having someone with the know-how could be completely invaluable, because they could come in and give you free insights that you might have to pay someone else 100k a year salary to get.
And then you appeared on Dragon's Den and received backing from them. How did that come about?
Yeah, so again, I think it's such a long process that I got to a point where, we'd done the competition, we'd done crowdfunding, we'd done the angel, and we needed more cash, but also we needed publicity. Publicity is like my bread and butter, the thing I know. And I was like, right, it makes sense to me that Dragon's Den could be the way forward for this. So I applied in the January, auditioned through to the May, got in, filmed in the June, and then my episode didn't air until the following February. So don't get me wrong, it was an amazing opportunity, an amazing experience that I would recommend to anyone. But of course, thinking about the challenges that we're discussing, you can see how that length of time, not bringing in any investment into the business, was also a challenge. Because if we weren't applying for Dragon's Den because we were sorted and we had loads of cash in the bank and we just thought this is the cherry on the cake. We were applying for it because we needed the funds. And so actually, I had a lot of live conversations that year with other investors, but I had to choose. I had to either go down the Dragon's Den route, or I had to go down another kind of like angel investment route. So because of the publicity piece, I chose the Dragons, again,
Yeah.
not knowing what the outcome was going to be at that time. But it meant that we didn't bring any money into the business for, well over a year. And then again, you can see how, for startups, that is also challenging. So again, it's like a watch out for Dragon's Den. Like, go for it, do it. You will get amazing publicity and amazing sales and amazing everything from it. It's awesome. I loved it. But if you're going to do it, understand that it is a year-long process. So think about maybe setting yourself up so that you can afford your business over that year while you see how the Dragon's Den experience pans out for yourself, or at least for 6 months from when you apply to when you audition, to knowing if you actually get Dragons.
You've obviously expanded massively on wholesale. How is the D2C side of the market working for you?
Well, this is another challenge and another learning. I'm full of them. Is that, because we had all these wholesale opportunities in year one straight away. I'm only one individual, and I also have another full-time job in my other company. So we just ignored D2C. We had a lovely, beautiful website because my husband Dan could design it. But from a functionality perspective, it wasn't really looked at. We didn't set up subscriptions straight away, etc., etc., which again we should have definitely done. And so 80% of our business was wholesale, 20% was D2C. And then occasionally when we got investment, we would then maybe dip our toe into paid marketing and paid media, but we would outsource it to an agency. It'd be very costly to do that. So it was really challenging for us to then, make that a viable channel. So we'd switch it off again after we'd spent some money. And it was only
Yeah.
really actually the Dragon's Den opportunity massively unlocked our D2C, which was amazing and would have been brilliant had I not been let down by my manufacturer. So I went out of stock. So this is why I kind of decided to exit, because there were so many things that kept happening that were like, I was losing sleep over it, but were actually out of my control. I'm sitting here, I'm being honest. I'm saying where I didn't know or didn't do the right thing, but there are also always things in business that are also out of your control, and it's whether or not you can suck that up. And that was it. So over the year that I was planning for Dragon's Den, I won't go into detail, but the relationship broke down with the manufacturer. They let me down on stock, and so we sold out through Dragon's Den, which was of course wonderful, but then we couldn't restock quick enough. So
Yeah.
all of
You
the
lose that
amazing,
momentum then, don't you?
so I lost that momentum. And so for me, this is going to sound really melodramatic, but that was really a really rough thing for me to accept, like a really, really low point for me. The fact that I'd put so much work towards making Dragon's Den amazing, from the marketing strategy, PR strategy, social strategy, obviously working with the Dragons, all of my time, like it really was a big piece of work, to then not be out and then see the amazing results from that instantly. It was like, wow, this is going to actually genuinely be the thing for us that moves the needle. Our D2C is flying, our subscriptions are flying, the reviews are constantly 5-star, like en masse. It was amazing. And now I actually can't ride on the wave of this, because I'm going to sell out on all my hero SKUs and I can't get them back in stock because of what's happened over the year before. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I just couldn't take it. I was so upset about that's what kind of led me to make the final decision to exit the business.
That is so frustrating. Like you say, it's something that's out of your control. And were there, other than obviously a very big red flag is the supplier not really wanting to have face-to-face meetings or Zoom calls, or that everything was over email, that would have been a very, big red flag. But were there other warning signs for you with that manufacturing relationship that you can talk about, that you felt uneasy about?
I mean, there were loads. So I guess, like, more generally, trust your gut. If there are any red flags, trust your gut. And because there were loads, from errors in the way things were sent to me. And you know what? People are always going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But for me, it's about how people deal with mistakes rather than when they've made them. And when people hold their hands up and try and support you and be solution driven, I think there are often ways forward for partnerships. But when people aren't accountable, that's a red flag. So without going into like sort of the detail of that, I would say, like, definitely trust your gut. If you feel like something's off, it usually is.
And so, from a timing point of view, and for people that are listening, of when Dragon's Den was filmed and that you didn't have the stock, and that you say that was this like the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the decision that you're like, right, okay, I'm going to exit. What timing was that from when that was now to when you actually sold the business?
Yeah, so Dragon's Den was in Feb and March were amazing, but I was thinking, oh my god, what am I actually going to do if I can't like rectify the stock situation? I know this is going to be sort of the end of me. Then I started to think about it probably from then. Started to sort of try and also I just want to say with the manufacturing side, another reason why I didn't want to leave is because the products they made were awesome and amazing. So it's
Yeah.
hard as well because you're often balancing a decision where you're like, people love these actual products, the products that they make are amazing, but if the way of working isn't there, I just don't think that it's too big it's so central to your business that almost even if the products are amazing, you sometimes have to make a difficult decision. But just to go back to your question, and then from there, I'm up for being like candid about the journey of selling because I think it could be helpful to people that are in a similar position. I did try and initially find a broker. I spoke to loads of people, lots of different brokers, found one that I felt could be a good fit, and that just didn't work out. They didn't bring me any opportunities. And for me, I'm not an expert. I'm only sold one business. But what I did learn through, or am learning through this process, is that actually I think unless your business is really super profitable and you can attribute a very certain kind of price of its value, it's very, very challenging to sell it through a traditional route because what I'm selling is more of a concept. It's more of a, this is what I think could be with it. And this is, like all the goodwill that we've created with it over the last few years. There isn't really like a tangible, oh, we've made this much profit and therefore, you can value it at this and this is therefore a really, really good business opportunity. It's not black and white where, oh, you put this much money in, you're going to get this money out. So the traditional route
Yeah.
didn't work. For me, that's why I sort of quickly realized that wasn't going to work. So I personally, again, with my sort of PR and marketing hat on, thought, right, well, I've worked in beauty for nearly 20 years. My network within beauty is quite extensive. I'm just going to be honest because I generally like to just think honesty is the best policy in most situations in life. I'm going to go out on
Yeah.
social, like Instagram, LinkedIn, PR, and I'm just going to tell it how it is for me. That I love this brand. I think it has so much potential. I've learned so much on this journey, but ultimately, like we're saying on this chat today, it is really challenging for indie brands because of all these reasons. And I think actually the brand now needs someone with the infrastructure, with the know-how, with the experience to take it forward. So help me. Who could that be? Are you out there? Help me do it and put it out into the world. It went kind of semi-viral, which was amazing because people always want to orchestrate viral moments and you can't really unless you've got like loads and loads of cash. So it was a real blessing for me that it genuinely did kind of happen in that organic way that I hoped it would. I also got to have my say, like the grocer,
Yeah.
cosmetics business news and titles, like actually put my story out there, and they were really, really kind and fair to me in the way that they told it, in the way that I wanted it to be articulated, like I've just described to you. And from there,
Yeah.
I had loads of inquiries. I had, I don't know, 60 or more inquiries, did Zooms. Like, also that had its challenges because sitting there 60 times and reliving my experiences, it was almost like a terrible job interview or really bad therapy where I
Yeah.
had to sit, I had to go on and I had to sell myself and sell the brand and show that I do know what I'm talking about. There is real potential and I super love it and it's brilliant and it's cool and it's all these things that they should want from a brand, but also that I do understand why it hasn't worked, but I do understand that it could work in the right hands. So that is quite a hard message to juggle. I cried on loads of them, which was completely humiliating because as I was like reliving every moment, honestly, I would start crying because I would be really upset and I didn't really want to sell it.
And it would have still been very raw for you at that time. You're like you're really in, like, anyone that's sold a business or closed a business, it is a very personal thing to you, and it's still very raw. It would have been very raw for you going through it, especially if you had to do it that many times to find the right person. And I want to come back to the selling side of it in a minute. When you were looking at the business model, and because you were spread so in so many different countries and stocked in so many retailers. Did you start to pull back on that and go, hang on a second, we really can't continue this way, or we can't survive? Because with 80% of your business being wholesale, the profitability would have been challenged, and cash flow obviously would have been a challenge as well. Did
Yeah,
you pull back from that?
yeah, definitely. We did have a strategy ahead of Dragon's Den of just trying to exactly pull everything back, just literally everywhere, and try and almost reset, knowing that hopefully from Dragon's Den there would be an opportunity to then go again. And that was the plan. So before I decided to sell, that was absolutely the plan. It was almost like, let's start again. Let's like shrink everything down, back down to the bare bones. Let's actually try and become self-sufficient through our D2C, through Dragon's Den, and then let's try and land one big retailer opportunity. So I said that on the show, and actually the head beauty buyer at Boots got in touch with me through LinkedIn and had said to me, I saw on the show that that's what you're hoping to do after this. Can we chat about that? And I also I spoke to Holland & Barrett again about potentially doing that. So all the signals were that this was going to go that way. But of course, if I didn't have the stock, well, again. So yes, to answer your question, that was going to be my moment to reset and go again, not like in every sense really with the business, which I think is what will happen now. That the people that are buying it, they're seasoned professionals, they're lovely individuals, super, super passionate. And that is my aim for them, is to almost like take this year to reset and go again with a new fresh strategy, lean into just like the UK market, have one big retailer opportunity, and kind of do all the things that I wanted to do, which is also why they are the perfect partners for me, because hopefully they'll be able to make the dream that I had for it a reality.
In terms of then finding that right fit of a buyer, what was your criteria? Were you, I just want to sell it, or I wanted to be sold to the right person? What was your criteria for finding that right person, and
Yeah.
during that process?
The right person was really important for me. Like realistically, this wasn't a deal where I was going to walk away with significant money to improve my lifestyle. The point of this was actually finding a safe pair of hands to take the brand forward in the best possible way. So the person was the most, or the people was the most important part of it. That it needed to be someone who wasn't just a wealthy individual who fancied having a stab at having a business. It needed to be ideally a team of individuals who had the infrastructure to actually do it properly, and really understood the industry. Ideally it was someone that I had a personal rapport with, so that I can still be involved going forward, and on the periphery, but still feel that relationship's there and we can. And yeah, just like, not, financially, obviously they needed to be financially secure to make the investment in it that it really needs to fly, but also just the experience and the know-how and the passion. So yeah, that was really important.
Have you gone through that? Have you sold now? You've gone through that sale process?
So we're going through it at the moment. So we will make sort of formal announcements and things once it's done. So it's close to being done with the right people. Actually, people I've known for 15 years, and I used to do the PR for one of their brands back in the day. I felt like we always had a really strong rapport, and we've kind of just stayed connected through LinkedIn and things like that. And actually, he's been sort of following my journey, which is great, because then that's what I needed. I needed someone who'd seen the journey I've been on to understand that there is potential there.
Are you going to stay on as part of the business initially?
So definitely the idea is for me to kind of just be like, I'm sure he wouldn't phrase it like this, but sort of just be wheeled out as a bit of a founder face as and when it's appropriate, which is so like, which suits me down to the ground. If there is someone that needs to be a mouthpiece, then I'm happy to be it.
Yeah.
But also again, I need to have space from it. So some of the other offers were for me to be more involved and still have part ownership. And actually, I decided in the end I didn't really want that, because it has been, I liken it to grief, but it has been a process for me to let go of it, because I've worked on this business every single day without exception for 7 years or more. So I have had to let go of it, and I have gone through all the stages of denial, anger, and so actually for my own sanity and mental health, I feel like actually, whilst it's lovely to have the option to be there and still have a very small say and be available also day to day, it's important for me to walk away from it.
So you can be connected in this way, but still as distant as you want, as you want and need to be. And how are you feeling now? Because like you say, it is such a big thing to go through. when you set up a brand and you go through that journey and you decide to sell?
I'm feeling super, super positive about it now. I'm actually glad that we're speaking now because I know we've been trying to connect for a while, and I feel like it's actually a good time for me to discuss it, because if we'd have been talking about it a few months ago, my tone might have been a bit more sad or negative, and actually it doesn't need to be, because there is so much there to celebrate, so much that was achieved. I'm just not going to take it, hopefully, to like the final hurdle, if you like. And I'm feeling really, really good about it. I think it's definitely the right decision. And I just think I'm really lucky that I found someone. There are so many, so many amazing businesses that don't make it, and Face might still not make it, but at least it still has a shot, because it is going to be taken on by the right people who will give it. Like, I have every faith that, you know, if anyone can do it, it's the people that are going to have it. Whereas I know that there are so many businesses that don't make it, and that, you know, in a way that's harder, because then you've got to then celebrate all the things that you achieve, but also have complete closure. Whereas at least I get to hopefully see it live on.
Yeah, see it grow and hopefully prosper into bigger things. And Jasmine, I've really enjoyed talking with you today. And you have another business as well. So talk to me a little bit about if people have enjoyed listening to your journey, and I follow you on Substack as well, where can people connect with you, see what you're about, and follow you as a founder?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, so my other company, known as a comms agency, we're going through a rebrand at the moment, which is super exciting. But essentially, I think what's been amazing about Faace is we genuinely have a real USP as an agency, because the whole known team has been on this Faace journey with me over the last 5 years. And unlike a lot of other companies, we really do know what it's now like to be brand side, and the challenges. And, you know, I think one of the challenges that you can get with working with PR companies is that they're only thinking about PR, and quite rightly so. Of course, that's their area of expertise. I'm not like throwing shade on them for that, but they have no idea about all of the things that's going on for you internally. And I think we genuinely now do. So it's definitely strengthened our approach to be able to support. And you can't just do PR nowadays. You have to look at the whole marketing mix and see how they all connect and see where to place your budget, etc. And I think we're really, really good at giving an oversight on that. So you know, again, that makes it really positive for me exiting Faace, because it's not like I'm like, well, that's just one door closed. It's actually still giving me lots of knowledge and lots of know-how for my other company. And also, again, another challenge I think for founders that leave a business is that they feel really lost. What do I do now? I need to get a job. Whereas I've always had the known job, and now I'm like, okay, so rather than just having two full-time jobs, I can just have one, and actually I don't need to worry
Yeah.
about what's next for me. I'm really lucky that I've got that there. And then also I launched a Substack a year ago, Failings of a Female Founder. It's a bit of a mouthful. But again, I just really wanted to share my experiences with other people. So I kind of write about what I want, but it mainly covers my experiences of grief and motherhood and juggling kind of a couple of businesses with a couple of kids, but then also just actually more specifically to do with Faace. What are all the things that I've learned? How could I have done it differently? Because I think, like, again, all these things that we've talked about today and more, if I'd have known a lot of those things, then I could have saved myself a lot of budget, a lot of heartache, a lot of time. And then also, just I'm really passionate about, you know, I've been doing communications nearly 20 years, sharing my experience with that, and how it's such an evolving landscape all the time. And I'm really passionate about keeping up to date with that. So it was just a platform really for me to whack all of those things into one. So if anyone's interested in any of that, then you can, yeah, subscribe and give me a follow.
Put all the links to everything that you've mentioned to to your different platforms in the show notes. And I subscribe to your Substack. That's how I originally, I think, found you. Well, I'd found the brand Faace, and then I found you as a founder, and I've been trying to speak to you for a couple of months now. So it's great that we've actually uh, managed to do it. But like I said, I love reading your Substack and the honesty of how you deliver that and your journey. I really enjoy it. So thank you so much, Jasmine, for joining me today. And I'll be back again next week with another great guest.
Thank you so much for having me.